Okay, we're at a place in our history where the feminine impulse, buried and pushed under for so long, is reappearing. Along with it, the women, the love, and the reality of the earth. It's not just about replacing the masculine with the feminine. We aren't going to lose anything. We can still have all the strength of the male ways to draw on. But what we're going to do is bring in this new principle and find a new balance among them so that both of them can cooperate to create a living, vibrant, vital planet that honors life. Okay, I've said, I propose in 7 principles for what is life. Life is an attribute of consciousness. Okay, all living beings, first principle. First principle, life is about consciousness. The earth beyond the city gates is not commodities and resources, not things. The earth beyond the city gates is beautiful, living, spiritual, conscious beings like ourselves. Let's get to know them. The earth needs some love in the way that our pets need love. It doesn't need to be ripped off all the time or forced to produce more than she can possibly provide. Okay. Yeah, consciousness, and the insight that I'm offering that consciousness is essentially continuous. It forms a continuum of which we are a part. Take a look at the earth around you. Walk out to be with it. It isn't things and commodities and resources. It's living, conscious beings like ourselves. So that's the first principle for life. Okay, the second principle of life is about connection. It's not about separating ourselves except in a very temporary, unlimited way. It's about connection of every being at some level with every other being, physically, chemically, and consciously, intersubjective, interrelated, and one. So that's 2 principles of life. Now, somewhere here is the third. It's about connection. Okay, the third principle I'm proposing for life is about organism. Hang on. Yep. Living beings are organisms. Now, this is how physiology has classically thought of them. The key is that the key aspect of an organism, in an organism like ourselves, every single part is functioning in the service of the good of the whole. Every role has a place to, every part has a role in the overall welfare of the whole being. And so we have to ask, before we net, cut, shoot, or poison something, what role is this playing for the planet? Now, we won't ever probably be able to answer that very clearly, but we have to know that the tree out there is serving some very important function for the earth. We have taken the earth to be made for us to do with as we like, and we have figured out, with respect to just about every being on the earth, how we can turn it to our own advantage and make use of it. This is the most sickening human attitude to the planet. It needs to change. Just let me remind you of what I said about the old-growth forest, the old trees. The old-growth forest, human beings look at an old-growth forest and they see a wonderful, cheap source of board feet, and they cut it. The truth is that the old-growth forest in human beings, in ways that human beings utterly do not understand, is like the native elders. All of the wisdom, of the earth plane is stored in it. They support and maintain the entire biosphere. Now, that's rather shocking, but every animal, we don't see it, obviously. Most of the interactions among living beings are at levels that we can't even see or feel, but they're real, and they sense each other, and their energies interact, and their information interacts. So we have to ask, in an organism, what part is it playing for the whole? Now, the rainforest, again, a cheap source of lumber. The rainforest is the lungs of the planet. It can absorb greenhouse gases. It purifies the air. It moisturizes the planet. The more we cut it down, the more we're faced with global warming, because nothing can absorb the gases that our automobiles are producing. And so that's organism. Now, organisms have a very wonderful property, and Lovelock's genius in proposing that the whole planet is an organism, a living organism. Organisms have a property called homeostasis. They have a wonderful ability to keep a steady state in themselves, despite what's going on the outside, to absorb the shocks and rebalance themselves. And of course, the biggest question, and nobody is even almost brave enough to ask it, how many of these vital links in the ecosystem or the organism that the earth is will have to go before the earth goes into a state of irreversible decline, where she cannot support life anymore. When we arrived in North America, when Columbus sailed in 1492 and found America, it was teeming with living forms. We know that all of these living forms are in this kind of relationship of homeostasis with one another. When do we get to a point where it declines irreversibly? Hopefully not yet. And so we need to think about what it really means to be an organism, a living being. And we're going to change our ways for good science. The more science learns about the interconnection of living beings, the more we will be able to make the adjustments. We need the truth. Human beings are made for truth. There's a direct connection, I know, between our strength and the truth of our own ideas. The climate of lies and deception and self-deception we all live in weakens us. It weakens us as surely as our poisons weaken the vitality of every being on the planet. We need the truth. Okay, organism. Whitehead, the philosopher Whitehead, thought that far from being reducible to physics and chemistry, as most scientists have believed biology would be, the answers would all lie in the molecules. The truth is that the concept of organism will one day totally revolutionize physics. I would say, and add to that, the notion that all organisms have consciousness, and it will really revolutionize physics. And maybe we'll lose our preoccupation with the forces and trying to unify the four forces. And, if we can lose our preoccupation with the forces, we may lose our preoccupation with the armed forces. But, again, I'm going to deal with that when I ask if they're very distinctive, different ways of thinking on both sides, and as there obviously are. Okay. Fourth principle. Fourth principle. The absolutely magical property that all living beings have. They can reproduce themselves. No Leonardo or Michelangelo can reproduce itself. Our crummy little appliances do not reproduce themselves. Living beings can reproduce themselves so that two become four. The 4 become 8. The 8 becomes 16. On it goes until abundance is once again on the planet. The key to reclaiming the planet is enhancing this ability of living beings to reproduce themselves, is letting our fields lie fallow. A field lies fallow for a few years, the whole ecosystem comes back, bingo, like that. The people who cleaned up in the Thames River in England figured it would take 20 years for the salmon to come back. It took 5. All the evidence is if human beings will put a little energy into helping the earth reproduce and find its healthy ways of being, the earth will bounce back. And the latest discipline is actually called restorative ecology. It's about restoring ecosystems. And given this magical property of the abilities of the earth, you cut down something and very quickly the green cover of the earth starts to reappear. And when it reappears, so do the birds, the animals, the fish, the insects, everything else. So it's reproduced. Okay, but then living beings, and this is the key to the difference, another difference between living beings and commodities and resources. Living beings have needs. We have needs. We're very good at, we think, meeting our own needs for food, clothing, shelter. They're very simple. And meeting the needs of our pets. The earth is not things. She is not commodities and resources to be ripped off to make a buck. She is living beings who can be healthy or sick. She can be well or ill. She can be flourishing or she can be in decline. Living beings have needs. They need and so, since we are absolutely dependent on the earth, living beings have rights. Now, human beings are giving themselves always rights. We are utterly dependent on the earth. If the earth does not have rights, neither do we. Every being on the earth, I will propose, has these rights. They have the right to their food sources. They have the right to their nesting sites, to their den sites, to their swamps, to their wetlands. They have rights to their migration routes. They have rights to their lives. They have rights to live. For some reason, human beings find it so easily to take life instead of give it. But this is what we're called to do. To look at living beings with new eyes and ask, how can I help this animal, this plant? How can I help it to flourish? So based on the magical properties of living beings, their ability to reproduce, and their rights to have their needs met, we can restore the planet. And the greatest need of all of them, I would say, is love. Animals raise their young with love and affection. Horses look after themselves better when they're cared for by someone, rather than when they just run free. Everybody flourishes for love. Living things also flourish by having love sent their way. Let's see what other... Yeah, I guess I would want to say that they have rights. Earth is a living planet. She is fertile and rich. She is abundant. But she has needs. The earth is screaming for a chance to rest, to renew herself. Human beings, in their insatiable greed and arrogance, apply chemical poisons to the fields. They never are allowed to lie fallow. They must go on forcing them and forcing them to feed us. The earth has need. She needs rest. She needs to have her needs met. And if we will meet the earth's needs, she will meet ours. That is the condition of our life here. Because the earth is primary, we are secondary. And so I would say that the earth is the great unknown. We have been dictating to the earth who and what she is, as men have been dictating to women who and what they are, for so long that we really haven't the foggiest idea about the earth whatsoever. And scientists science is finding wonderful things about the earth, and in concert with the kind of knowledge that the native peoples have, the medicinal values of plants, all of these things, the earth is the great unknown. And it's up to every one of us. It's open for every one of us to explore the planet with these principles. It's conscious, it's connected, it's all oneness, great, wonderful oneness. Animals have their own spirit, trees have their spirit. The native people know how to see the spirit of a wolf, the spirit of a deer. White man can't see anything except money, keeping busy and making money, the great values of modern life. You know, this has nothing to do with reality, really. Okay, so there are 7 ways to think about the earth. They're very, very simple. But the key term is, of course, connection. We come out of a tradition of separation, and we have to rethink ourselves in terms of connection. And I'm proposing that the most important need of the planet is for love, for human beings. The male and materialist answer to global warming will be guns and bombs. Same old thing. What's really called for is waking up and honoring and loving people and beings around us, starting building from the base. Now, those are some fundamental key terms for getting the earth right. Now, second problem, let's get ourselves right. How have we defined ourselves? Well, hitherto we have always defined ourselves as something separate from the earth, different from the earth. If we evolve, if evolution is, well, if people will admit that they have evolved through evolution, we are the very goal of evolution. We are the pinnacle of creation. And we are different, we are separate, we are better than everything else. We are superior, we are the lords and masters of the planet. The planet shall do as we say. Conquer and subdue. The earth is to be conquered and subdued, and she must behave as we tell her to behave, because we're in charge. Well, the truth is, we aren't in charge. The earth is in charge. Human beings are a very small aspect of the planet who have put ourselves in this awesome position where we are now responsible for the well-being of the planet herself. And if the earth is to live here, and if we are to live here, we have to measure up to that responsibility. What human beings, the other, of course, that great tradition has always honored reason, that it is our reason that separates us from everything else, our reason that makes us divine, and everything else is a thing, because we are the only animal made in the image of God. Well, the truth is, the pinnacle of creation, we are the parasite of the planet. At this point, we are the major predator on the planet. We are a parasite. And it may well be that with global warming, the earth has realized that she harbors a dangerous parasite and is about to get rid of us. The human mind has always celebrated itself. We are the rational animal. Look around us. There is nothing rational about us. One person has observed the truth of Man is a great ape gone mad with its so-called mind. A great ape gone mad over its so-called mind. We have to rethink our divinity. Men have to rethink their divinity. They can no longer define themselves by despising women in the earth. They have to go back to the drawing board. Who are we? Women have to find their power and reclaim their rights and their own divinity, along with that of the earth and all other beings. Okay, what are we good at? The human race is best at stupidity. We are very good at this, and 1,000 forms of deception and self-deception that keep it all in place. We are very good at being stupid, at letting ourselves be dumbed down, at letting ourselves give ourselves reasons not to have to do anything about all of this. Just give us our football games and our cold beer, and who cares what's going on the planet? You know, the moment is it. Well, even the most self-centered humans, adults, need to start thinking about the planet in terms of their children. The men cutting the rainforest at this point are in a typical disconnect of everybody. They know cutting the forest will destroy the planet for their children. They do it anyway. Human beings have to learn to make their decisions as the native peoples made them, unto the 7th generation. Now this is very hard for the instant fix mentality of the modern world to comprehend whatsoever. You know, the present crisis that really, I think, reveals the truth about ourselves. We're greedy, we're aggressive, we're myopic, we're poisonous. We poison every species other than ourselves. I would say the poisoned rivers, the depleted forests, the depleted soils, these are a mirror for us. If you want to know who we are, look at the state of the planet. We're so intimately connected with her. That's who we are. And the truth is, you know, every being on the planet is afraid of us, with good reason. We are, hang on, I just want to say, well, I've mentioned the fact that, you know, we're at the top of all the food chains. I think we have to ask ourselves who we really are. Because all the things we've thought about, we aren't. You know, we're not the rational. We're not in charge. We're not the goal of evolution, whatever we are. And I think at this point in history, we don't know who we are. And this is a big question for everyone, because the Delphic Oracle, the single precept of the Delphic Oracle, which even Socrates consulted, was know thyself. The Delphic Oracle thought it was very important to know thyself. And I take this crisis that the human race has created for itself, or as spirit taking a hand in human affairs, it is a call to really know ourselves. And the disaster that the earth is all around us tell us a whole lot about ourselves. We are not a pretty sight, frankly. And the arrogance and ignorance that have prevailed hitherto need to give way to a kind of enormous humility about, well, you know, really everything else is more important than we are. Let me illustrate one of these Tucson conferences toward a science of consciousness that has been meeting for 20 years with no consciousness science in sight. There was an academic philosopher there, a professional philosopher. In my view, academic philosophy is just about a contradiction in terms. This philosopher talked about the great-souled creatures, how the planet is divided into two kinds of beings. the great-souled creatures and the small-souled creatures. Okay, much love, much laughter from the audience. And the great-souled creatures, which are, of course, ourselves, step on the small-souled creatures to either more laughter. And then he went on to say, to talk about these small-souled creatures all around us, which we have to endure to be here. And at one point he said, the animals don't communicate. They can't communicate. They don't have language. Well, come on. The animals have had their act together for millions of years. They don't have to talk. They function telepathically with a speed and accuracy beyond anything human beings can even imagine. And I have a whole new vision of consciousness, but I'll put it on a back burner for now, of how things interact through consciousness, because consciousness is invisible, not measurable. It doesn't show up on any kind of scan. So here's just the typical arrogance and ignorance of philosophy. Well, I thought about it, and this is like the Tao. If the Tao weren't laughed at, it wouldn't be what it was. If the small-souled creatures were not laughed at, they wouldn't be who they are. They are the most important beings on the earth. They uphold and maintain the whole biosphere. They are the base of the biosphere. Human beings are the top parasite. We are completely expendable. We have never done one good thing on the planet that I can think of to benefit any other species than ourselves, or force species into some good use we can make of it. The typical arrogance of philosophy, if this is where the philosophers are these days, you're not going to get much help from them. If the great-souled creatures, if the small-souled creatures left the planet tomorrow, the biosphere would collapse. If the great-souled creatures left, every other species would heave a great sigh of relief. They would start ridding themselves of the poisons we have filled them with and being happy again. Because everybody, apparently, except human beings, knows how to be happy in the moment. We don't. And so, who are we? Well, I would say we're becoming aware of, one, the power that we have to do the planet in and to do ourselves in. We are becoming aware that we are powerful beings. We need to harness our power into the service of life and of living beings. And that we are earthlings. Whatever destiny we have, or the spirit world from whence we come, we are earthlings. The early seas flow in our bloodstreams. Our nervous system are millions of years old. When you want to know yourself, go out. Don't consult a philosopher, for God's sake. Go out and sit in a field under the stars and feel the winds and hear the voices of the night, the coyotes howling in the foothills, the birds, the owl hooting, the winds, the moon. Just be there and connect with the planet, and you will begin to know who you are at the deepest levels of your being. The Delphic Oracle, know thyself. There are lots of ways to know oneself and lots of categories, and I'm going to talk about them at some point. But the real first notion that we have to get through our heads, we are earthlings. Our bodies have been developing for millions of years. We know the planet deeply and well at levels of consciousness which we aren't even aware of. And that's the way to find out who you are. Experience a deep connection. There's a branch of ecology now called deep ecology, recognizing that human values are very deeply grounded in the whole nature of the evolving earth, and that they have a strong, strong earth foundation. And I would go on to say, in fact, the earth is the touchstone for health, for every human practice, for every human civilization. for every idea, every attitude, for every theory. No matter how far our theories soar, they end up back on the earth. If they make a mess of the earth, you know there's something the matter with our theories. And as the modern situation, as this crisis that we have called makes clear, there's a whole lot the matter with our theories. The wrong. They are the wrong. We are put ourselves in the position of finally recognizing who we are. We are earth keepers. We are earth keepers. And we need to be serious about that most ultimate role and that most ultimate vocation. The earth does not need us. We need the earth. You think of one good thing human beings have done for an earth. Maybe grow an ornamental garden, or protect a sacred grove of trees from being ransacked by other human beings. The little creepy crawlies of the planet are the ones who matter. Even an earthworm is more important than a human being, a bumblebee, a butterfly. All of these beautiful, exquisite beings look at their perfection, go out and look at a flower. Look at the kind of perfection of beings and wonder how human beings could ever have promoted themselves to this lofty place which entitles them to destroy every other living thing. We have made ourselves the supreme executioner of every species on the planet, and we are about to pay the price. Either we move into this new and true and what we're always meant to be in the Garden of Eden, earth keepers, or that's it for us. The earth is not going to put up with our nonsense anymore. Everybody has to wake up, and the kind of arrogance in this philosopher and ignorance of the animals. How can you say the animals can't communicate? They don't have language. We have never, we forcing a few chimpanzees to learn to type some words is not my idea of learning to communicate with the animals. Behind the collapsing economy and the collapsing financial systems is fear. Before the future is love. If we can move into the love, then we can pull off something helpful to the planet and begin to do perhaps what we were to do here. And in fact, some scholars are saying, well, the real translation of Genesis that has been taken to have dominion over the earth and subdue it, actually the right translation of the ancient texts are be responsible for. We have put ourselves in a position where we can see not just our own extinction and our self-destruction. We have put ourselves in a position where we are now responsible for the future of life on earth, if it's to be part of our adventure. And if the earth is going to get rid of us, then we will have brought it on ourselves. That's all I can say. We are earthlings, we are earth keepers. And we need to ask ourselves what it is to move into that role. And as I have mentioned, the only attitude to the earth that is right for religious people is we are stewards. The planet does not belong to us, it belongs to another. We are responsible for the planet. There was a time when the far right welcomed the cutting of the trees, the destruction of every ecosystem, reasoning that as soon as they were all destroyed, Jesus would return. Well, of course, they finally realized, if Jesus returns, he's going to need the trees and all the animals that support our wasteful lifestyle, And now they're going green. Well, that is, everybody at this point has to go green. And I'm going to start to spell out what this means, because it's time for the philosophers and the academics to come out of their laboratories, out of their academies, get out of their ivory towers, out of their heads, come down and get their feet on the ground. Because actually what I'm saying needs to happen is already happening. And that's part of the hope for us. I'm just describing what's already going on. And so there are some it's time for a wider vision of reality. The Cartesian universe is a little box. We're opening up the flaps to step out into the greater universe as I leave this room in the house and step out into God's world, the world that spirit and not human beings has made. We are all being called for a wider, richer, and fuller vision of things. Vision of what life could be here, a vision of what our roles could be here, and a vision of what we need to be doing on the planet. And so we're ready to begin. Those are, I think, the right fundamental terms, some of them, for starting with life and starting with a new concept of ourselves. Now, that's what I want to say for today. And I'm going to go on and mention the ideas, or contrast the old ways of thinking about things with the new. I'll just mention one of them, the religious ideas which have been such a powerful determination of human attitudes toward the planet. That only human beings are made in the image of God. Only human beings are divine. The human being is the only divine being on the planet. Everything else isn't. What a lonely place we have gotten ourselves into. We're separate, we're superior, we are the divine being. And over the centuries, what people have thought was our divinity has come and gone. Sometimes it's reason, sometimes it's something else. In general, looking at the state of the earth, I would say it's our ability to destroy everything in sight. And this does not speak highly of us. And we're in a position where we have to convert from a civilization based on the destruction of the planet to one that promotes the health and the well-being of every living thing, ourselves and every other living being. Now this is quite a momentous shift. There are some of the new terms that we need, starting with consciousness. And I'm going to go on and talk about, much in very practical terms, okay, now what needs to happen? What do we need to be doing? And before I do this talk, I leave you, start applying green cover, start reseeding, start covering the desert places and the drought places. Start from the base. If you can start with the simplest fundamental terms that all ecosystems, however complex they get, rest on, then we can build from there. Then you'll find the insects will start coming, and then other kinds of plants will start coming in, and then more and more, and finally the larger animals. And in 10 years or so, you can restore a whole ecosystem. The earth is incredibly resilient. We have taken advantage of this up until now to force her to do what we want her to do. She is resilient, but she has limits. She's rich and abundant, but she's limited. She's a small, abundant, living planet. And I recommend that you start reading Tom Berry. Tom Berry was a prophet for the earth all during the 20th century when no one was paying attention. His great book, first The Dream of the Earth, came out when he was 75. And then The Great Work. He calls everybody at every level of society to the great work of getting the earth right and bringing ourselves into balance with the earth. Not imposing our solutions on the top down, but letting the earth reveal herself from the bottom up, and recognizing that we have always gotten her wrong, and we need to go to school in her. We need to find out just who and what is this mystery that's all around us. Okay, I'm going to leave it there for today. And then I'm going to go on and talk very practically. Now, what do we do? What has to happen? Starting from the fact that we are a sick society, run by sick thought forms, ideas that have completely outlived their usefulness, and we need a few healthy, viable and vital new concepts. And I have started with consciousness and the recognition that the planet, the earth, and the whole universe are enspirited. There's spirit in all things. And I've already connected this view with the view of this was the earth that Jesus knew in the Gospel of John. I living in you, we living in them. And at the Last Supper, when Jesus was saying, this is my body, this is my blood, he was teaching his disciples, the Spirit is in all beings. And this is going to make the difference. It's going to make the difference between looking out at mechanics versus looking out at an incarnation of Spirit, which is magic and mystery everywhere. And so I'm going to leave you with that for the day. I think Spirit is it's a term that is very much in harmony with the feminine. And I'll just leave you with one thought. When you want to find Spirit, just go out and drop your boundaries. How do we know Spirit? A native elder, why would I build a temple to my God when I can go out in nature and meet him face to face? How do we know Spirit? We know Spirit through our psyches, our souls, our senses, our bodies, our deep selves, in total connection with the consciousness interactions and connections all around us. The whole of the invisible world, well below the level of mind, and that is where the bliss is. That is where the Garden of Eden is. We don't just know with our heads at desks or at microscopes. We know with every faculty of our beings. And so you need to go out and you need to find out what's available in the way of knowledge of Spirit and in the way of knowledge of who you are. The Delphic Oracle, the great precept, know thyself. But then it has a longer version. Know thyself and you will know God and the universe. Because they're all somehow quite magically together out there. And you might do a little reading in deep ecology. The embers and the stars. Arne Nace. At the embers and the stars. Seeing the connection between things. Seeing things in terms of connection is so new to us that it has to be absorbed, but we have to redesign ourselves in the knowledge of a greater whole, that we are a part of something that's much bigger than we are. And it's rather comforting, actually, not to be the only divine being on the earth plane, and for a great many male thinkers, actually, in the universe, it's rather comforting to know that we have a lot of first cousins all around us. I rest my case. We'll take it from there. What this amounts to is taking an earth-centered perspective on ourselves, of getting out of our little fabricated, human-centered wonder world into the truly real, the greater universe. It's about getting out of our technological trance. It's about getting out of our preoccupation with artificial and fabricated things, getting out of our incessant noise, our incessant violence, our mindless high tech. It's about getting out of our addiction to concrete and glass. And it's about getting past our mania for the making, selling, buying, and owning of things. And it begins with getting past the most sickening human attitude that everything has been put here for us to use. This is behind the whole of the modern world. And the sooner we realize that, no, this is a false notion of human beings, it's a false understanding of the earth, then we'll be ready to grow up and step into our real role here as earth keepers, requiring in the first instance that we know something about the planet. Thanks to good science, we know a lot about the planet. Thanks to a lot of very good reflection by intelligent people, we're also beginning to grope our way into the crisis, how severe it is, and where it's coming from, and what we can do about it. And so for now, I rest my case. Go out of doors and be in the magic and the mystery. Step out of your back door into mystical experience, because it's everywhere. That's what the earth is all about. Anyhow, lots of love. And go on choosing the love, because that, in the end, is what's going to make the difference. Turn off the radio, turn off the TV, quit reading the mainline newspapers, and find out what ordinary people all over the planet are already doing in the way of restoring the earth. Because all the things I'm saying have to happen, are happening. All I'm doing is putting some nice strong concepts in place that we can refer to. Okay, so that's it. And in my next talk, I'll be much more practical about what the philosophers need to be doing about all of this. Because everybody has a part, and especially them. Why? Because they deal with ideas, and they know better than anybody the power of ideas, and they need to be put to work. So we'll talk about that in a bit.